Capcom never ceases to disappoint me. Volnut's still on the moon, Axel's still comatose, Master Thomas hasn't tried to reset the world, and the third threat still hasn't been revealed yet! Oh wait, that's the wrong franchise. Okay, time to talk about Mega Man again. With the franchise's 30th anniversary fast approaching and still no official logo in sight, I figured it was time to talk about this. The reason that I love this series so much is that it builds itself on the solid foundation of great gameplay, great level design, and fun and challenging bosses. In particular, the Robot Masters best exemplify what I love about this series. That is, when they don't absolutely suck. With the official Robot Master Field Guide listing over 100 of these bosses, it shouldn't be surprising that there are enough bad ones to make a list out of them. Whether it's their design, their stage, their battle, or their weapon, these guys prove that Capcom hasn't been batting 1,000 even before they started neglecting the franchise. Don't worry, I'll be talking more positive on another list, but for now, it's game time! Let's start off this list by talking about the original. This is a clear case of first game syndrome. Not a bad game by any means, but there were some rough edges that the sequel smoothed out. And while there were some great Robot Masters in the first game, Bomb Man was not one of them. Truth be told, there's not a lot going for this guy. His design really doesn't give much indication as to who he is. In fact, were it not for the fact that he's actually carrying a bomb, I'd have no clue what he did based on the design alone. His stage is also rather bland and easy for the most part, save for a few annoying enemies such as the bombs that splinter apart after flying out of those pits, and those flying bullets that explode upon being shot. Those are pretty much the only bombs in the whole stage. The music isn't even all that good. And the fight is bland and easy. Stay close to him and he'll jump away. Stay far away and he'll just keep throwing bombs. This pattern is too easily exploitable to be of any challenge with the standard Lemons, let alone his weakness of the Firestorm. Meanwhile, his weapon, the Hyper Bomb, sounds pretty straightforward. You toss a bomb, and it damages enemies in the blast radius. Except it has one fatal flaw. It doesn't detonate upon contact with an enemy. Thankfully, the remake fixed this issue and gave him some personality to boot, but otherwise, this guy, just a dud. Mega Man 5 on NES was a very okay game with a very okay group of Robot Masters. Except for Stone Man. He's just bad. Okay, to be fair, the idea of a stone golem turned into a robot doesn't seem too bad, but the problem is that not much was done with it. First part is his design. I know he's made of stone, but he just looks like a bunch of bricks made into a robot. Second, his stage is long, boring, and bland. It just keeps going on, and on, and on, and on, and it's not like the design is interesting either. It's just a mountain base inside a cave. Compared to other stages the game had to offer, like a crystal cave, a gravity research center, and freaking space, this is dull. I mean, couldn't the developers have come up with something more interesting? Same goes for fighting this guy. He rarely uses his weapon, and most of the fight is just him jumping around and... What? What? Did he just break apart? Come on, this isn't Super Mario Bros. Have some dignity for God's sakes! Also, his weapon, the Power Stone, could have been a good weapon, except for a couple big flaws. First, it only travels counterclockwise, regardless of which direction you're facing. Second, they spread out way too fast, resulting in a weapon that requires precise placement or a huge hitbox just to hit anything. And when you have other weapons like the Gyro Attack and the Crystal Eye, why would you use something that requires an unnecessary amount of placement just to hit anything? Just reminds me of how much I'd love to see a new Power Stone game. Those were awesome. Stone Man isn't. Mega Man 5 on Game Boy doesn't get talked about all that much, and truth be told, it's a real shame. The Star Droids were a really solid set of Robot Masters, with the exception of Uranus. Following what we've seen already, Uranus is yet another bland and unremarkable robot. Are you starting to see the pattern here? His design is not terrible, but it feels like Taurus would have been a better name for him. Taurus Fire from Star Force notwithstanding, of course. As for his stage, if you thought Stone Man's stage was unnecessarily long and tedious, this is even more so. It's like Stone Man stage. In space! Yeah, this sucks. The only things of note in this stage are the cylinder platforms that can spin you off if you're slacking, the cycling platforms that we've already seen in Mega Man 3, and these Pharaoh Mask mini-bosses that, like the rest of the stage, are tedious and take too long to deal with. As for Uranus himself, he's an extremely predictable boss fight. His pattern can be dodged with simple sliding, and it's constant. Kind of like Stone Man's fight, except for one teensy-weensy yet ever so crucial tiny little detail. He can insta-kill you. If those blocks crush you when he jumps up high, you're dead. Except even that's typically a non-factor since all you need to do is get up close to him. It's not even worth it for his weapon. In fact, the Deep Digger is probably the worst weapon in the entire series. Think the Super Arm, yet even less usable, since when you actually find blocks to use it, there are hardly any enemies around. Actually, the more I think about it, the more Uranus actually does sound like a fitting name, because this guy is just ass. Mega Man 3 might have been the height of my NES nostalgia, but I can still admit that there are some problems with it, not the least of which is the existence of Hard Man. Pervert. Okay, so immature jokes aside, this is still another Robot Master with nothing special about him. His design is probably the blandest yet. I don't even know if he's based on anything in particular, just that he's built to be extremely durable. And how about that stage of his? Well, it's just as bland as the last two, as it's just another mountain mine, kinda like Stone Man stage. Which also happens to be filled with a bunch of annoying enemies like these snapper traps that trigger with touch, these spastic monkey fucks, and Bro Jared reference. Oh, and there's one of these game's several fights with Breakman here, made a bit more annoying thanks to the uneven arena. So I guess that adds something? Nah, it really doesn't. Music isn't that great either. As for the fight, yup, it's simple and predictable. Shoots his fists, one after the other, then jumps up high and slams into the ground. Yawn. At least there's his weapon, right? And it hits hard, right? Except that the hard knuckle gains momentum much too slowly, and has very little in the way of vertical range. Meaning good luck hitting anything that has quick vertical movement. Considering the kind of Robot Masters Mega Man 3 had, like Gemini Man, Magnet Man, and freaking Shadow Man, I find it difficult to find much to like about Hard Man. Mark him down as a solid no. Mega Man 2 is easily the most famous game of the classic series. This game codified a lot of the standards that would define the template that future games would follow, including E-Tanks, Wily Skull Fortress, multiple utility items, and 8 Robot Masters instead of the original game's 6. Unfortunately, not everything in this classic has aged all that gracefully. Isn't that right, Heat Man? Funny how fire bosses are either awesome or bad, with almost no in-between. In this case, it's definitely the latter. Heat Man's design is okay. I mean, a lighter isn't the worst idea for a design, but the issue I have is that derp base that kinda cheapens him. As for his stage, I think it's supposed to be a geothermal plant or waste disposal facility, but it doesn't have enough set pieces to really distinguish it or make it interesting in the slightest. The magma doesn't even look the part. Not to mention, this was the stage that made Yoku blocks infamous. Iceman's stage from the original had these, but there was little consequence for screwing up. In this stage, the infamous stretch of blocks is not only frustrating to traverse unless you have item 2, but it extends over instant kill magma. You made a stage both boring and frustrating. How do you even do that? And his battle is the opposite for being too damn predictable. His flame pillars are easy to dodge, his charge after being shot can be jumped over with ease, and with good timing, you can keep him out with no problem. Worst of all, his weapon is a waste. Quite literally, in fact. The Atomic Fire is the first chargeable weapon in the series, but there are two huge problems. It takes an eternity to charge, and a full charge takes more than a third of your weapon energy. Sorry, but it's not the fire on the outside that matters, it's the fire on the inside. But at least I've been burned by worse. Mega Man 4 took the series in a slightly different direction by adding the ability to charge the Mega Buster, as well as having a secondary villain before it's revealed that Wily is still behind everything. Of course, when it comes to bad Robot Masters in this game, it's usually Toad Man, but the only real bad thing about him is that his fight is pathetic, as opposed to Bright Man, who's pretty much bad across the board. First off, I can see what they are going for with the whole light bulb motif, but it's hard for me to take it seriously, especially when Flash Man did the whole light-based Robot Master thing better. As for a stage, it's an annoying son of a bitch, with enemies that make the lights go in and out, grasshoppers that can be slow and tedious to travel on, and what's with these freaking platforms? Oh, and how about we mix the light bulb bullcrap with those platforms and projectiles for bad measure? And if you thought that was annoying, just wait until you fight this guy. You're likely to take damage in this fight even with his weakness, that being the Rain Flush, considering how he can jump you into a corner and there's no specific pattern as to when he'll jump and when he'll shoot. But if you're going Buster only, good luck. He'll use his Flash Stopper when he reaches specific levels of health, and when he uses it, you're helpless. So you have to pray to Palutena herself that you can do just enough damage to skip these thresholds. As for his weapon, well, it's okay, I guess. The Flash Stopper freezes all enemies on screen and actually allows you to shoot while time is frozen, even allowing you to shoot through shields. But that's about the only bright spot in an otherwise dim Robot Master. Mega Man 8's not a bad game overall, but it has some bumps in the road that keep it from being one of the series' best, such as some troublesome snowboarding sections, some janky Kang swimming controls that were barely used at all, laughably bad voice acting,
when we find that meteor, we'll find Dr. Wily,
and the fact that Capcom apparently got away with trademark infringement without DC Comics suing them out the ass. That's right, Aqua Man, I'm looking straight at you! But sharing the name of a comic book hero aside, this bubble butt is pretty damn annoying. First off, that design makes him look like a rejected water park mascot. I mean, this isn't what comes to mind when I think of Terror of the Deep, am I right? As for a stage, well, remember that janky Kang swimming? Well, how about designing a water level around swimming? That'll work wonders, right? No, it doesn't. The issue I have with the swimming is that whenever you tread water, you automatically propel yourself forward as well as upward. This doesn't work here because the level seems designed for swimming controls more like Mario's. Doesn't help that the mini-boss is easily the most annoying in the entire game, considering that the logs you stand on appear at random, meaning you can get hit and cornered rather easily. It also doesn't help that Aqua Man himself is both easy and annoying at the same time. His water balloons and giant water column are easily avoided, but his water cannon can be tricky to dodge considering it changes angle at random, meaning you can be left in a position where you'll need to take a tricky jump just to avoid taking a hit. And, Aquaman, dude, do you have to open your mouth every time you move?
Water balloon!
And what do you get for all your trouble? A water balloon? A water balloon? A water balloon? It's official. This guy is lame. Why do I find that hard to believe? Mega Man 6 was great. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that it's one of the best on the NES. It had mostly solid level design, some sweet power-ups in the form of the Rush adapters, and a cool assortment of Robot Masters that spans the globe. Then I remember that Plant Man exists, and I suddenly feel sorry for all the gamers in Brazil who got represented by this guy. Now, I don't hate the idea behind Plant Man. He's a Robot Master made to resemble a flower, obviously, specifically those found in the rainforest. That could work. In fact, in other games in the same franchise, it has worked. But in this case, the design doesn't come off as cool or threatening in the slightest. Maybe it's the face or something, I don't know. His stage is, well, a rainforest, but there's not much interesting or challenging about it. The set pieces really don't do much for the level, the base interior is a bland section, and the most interesting things in this level are these springs and these platforms that unfold when you shoot them. His battle isn't any good either. He has a very strict pattern that he never deviates from. He'll put up his barrier, jump, launch it when he lands, run towards your location, put up the barrier again, rinse and repeat until he withers away. Probably the worst part about him is his weapon, the plant barrier. Now, shield weapons are hit and miss throughout the series, but the plant barrier is probably the worst of the bunch. It can't be thrown, and vanishes after being hit with a single attack. Man, talk about missed potential. Well, at least he put up more of a fight in the arcade game. Not that it counts for all that much. Brazil deserves better than this. Mega Man and Bass. This is honestly one of the hardest and most frustrating games in the series, and for the most part, it's not in a good way. Whether it's irritating boss fights or aggravating level design, the problems with this game can suck the fun right out of it. And aside from King Fortress 2, nowhere is this more apparent than with this hot mess. Get it? Because his name is Burner Man? And you facepalm! All cards on the table though, Burner Man has dealt me more frustration than any other Robot Master I have ever faced. The only thing I like about him is his design, which definitely screams that he wants to burn you to the ground without the need for voice acting.
Burn to the ground, burn!
No! No, you are not welcome here! No! No! His stage, not so much here. Welcome to the jungle. Again. This level has some minor annoyances like gaps in the floor which are hidden behind foreground set pieces in the base, and an area with constantly spawning robo-birds, and some major annoyances like this spear room where they pop out with seemingly no discernible pattern, and the area with the giant tellies that create waves of insta-kill fire. This is one stage where it's really difficult to get through without taking damage no matter who you're playing as. That's a clean burning hell, I tell you what. And that goes double for actually fighting Burner Man. He's got a wide assortment of attacks, mad dashes, throwing grenades, and his flamethrower, with no rhyme or reason as to when he does what. It's bad enough with the Buster, but his weakness is the ice wall, and you have to use it in a very specific way. When he's standing still, you need to shove it into him so that he falls into the spikes on the side of the arena. If he's moving when it hits him, it will shatter, dealing minimal damage. Look, I like challenge. When it's fair. But this goes beyond fair and into the realm of outright frustration. And all that for a short-range flamethrower that even works differently underwater. Fuck that noise. With everything that's changed since 2013, there are still some things that have remained the same. I'm still a fan of Wisconsin sports, communism and fascism are still dangerous political extremes, and Quint is still fucking horrible. I'm sorry, but I still can't wrap my head around how one boss went to such lengths to do everything wrong. Stage, design, battle, weapon, even music. Quint fails in every single category. Design? Absolutely putrid. I mean, he looks like a bad Mega Man OC. Original Man, do not steal! Stage? What stage? He just shows up right after the teleporters that are just the second set of Robot Masters, without anything between them and him. The fight with him is a total joke. All he does is jump around on his pogo jackhammer and drill up rocks that will almost never hit you because you can attack him from a distance just like any other Robot Master. You don't even get to finish him off. He just runs away like a little bitch. What about the music? Well, how do you like the 8-second loop of Mega Man 2 on Game Boy's ear-grating sound font? And what do you get for all your trouble? Just his pogo stick, the Sakugan. True, it can reverse spikes and cause damage by jumping on enemies, but there's a crippling flaw. Mega Man is not invincible when riding it, and if you don't kill your enemy in one hit, you're taking damage. But the worst part about Quint is how the idea behind him fell flat on its face. Quint is, according to the story, a future version of Mega Man reprogrammed by Wily for battle. So even with the Robot Masters we had up to that point, we had plenty of weapons to work with and incredible potential for an exciting battle, and the devs literally used none of it. I haven't played Infamous, but the battle with Kessler, from what I gather, is an example of a similar concept done right. An opponent with your powers and then some. We could have had something like that years earlier. We had potential for an epic battle. Mega Man against himself at his most powerful. A robot blessed by the power of Arceus! God spoink! Apparently Capcom tapped another developer for this game than for Dr. Wily's Revenge. And from the looks of things, they decided to go back to the original developer for the remaining 3 Game Boy games. Good. I'm the Quarter Guy, and if there's one good thing I can say about Quint, it's what the fans have done with him. He's an optional boss in the most recent update of Mega Man 8-Bit Deathmatch, and actually looks pretty challenging. He even has his own fan game, and from what I've seen of it, it's pretty good. And that's good and all, but if the fans can do better justice to a character than its creators, then you know something's wrong. Hadouken! Shoryuken! Tatsumaki Senpu Kyaku! Sonic Boom! Cannon Spike! Spinning Bird Kick! Okay, I think I have all the basics down. Time to hit up the arcade. Wait, I just remembered that's not how that works. Next time, top 10 Street Fighter characters. It's game time!
Let's rock out.